We are back. We are back.
We are.
Hello, this is Sako and the Moon Horror Podcast. We are two self published horror authors who are walking the path of craft and movie reviews and stuff like that. So, you might have caught last week when we did. Was it last week?
It was last week or week before last.
It wasn't week before last because I was not here. So,
It would have been before that then.
So this is part 2 of The Substance.
Yeah, we got about halfway through our critique and realized that the hour was up. Because let me tell you, this movie, there's a lot happening visually in this movie, and it took a lot to talk about as far as what people were doing, how the movie was written, how the production was. There's a lot to say, and it took us an hour to get through half of it.
Yep. So we're going to go through the other half of it, which is characterization and the theme. Come on, Sako. Hold on. Let me change windows.
So just to catch you guys up, in case you haven't seen the other episode, feel free to pause this one, go back, rewatch the other episode, catch up.
I will likely have the link. I will likely have the link in the description if you want to catch the first part.
And it's the thing. Like, you can go ahead and just go while you're clicking things. Go ahead and hit like on the thing, and you're clicking stuff already, so you might as well. So yeah, pause this one. This will go in yours, like watch later or whatever. Go back, watch the other episode. It's a good little hour. It's a lot. The movie is a lot. If you haven't seen the movie, you probably should have watched that already. You should watch that.
Also, spoilers.
Yeah,
so many spoilers.
We do that.
So if you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie.
So go watch the movie. It is available on DVD. You can get it streaming. Then watch the first hour, and then come back and watch this.
No.
Yes? This is no.
Where did I watch it?
Where did you watch it? Did you get it on Prime?
I think it was. No, it was some streaming service that required me to have a trial.
Might have been like Max or something.
I can't remember. It wasn't Max.
Go to your favorite search
engine.
But
anyway.
Go to your favorite search engine, type in The Substance. It's the movie with Demi Moore. It should tell you where to watch it. Watch it. Then watch the first hour here. You should already be subscribed to us. It'll be easy to find when you go back to YouTube. If you're not already subscribed to us, do that now. And then you'll come back and you'll find The Substance. You'll find the one we already did. If you don't want to go through all that, we gave it 2 stars so far, and we're carrying on with a third category. So if you don't want to go through all that rigmarole, just sit tight. 2 stars already, and we're going to carry on from here.
Yeah. So we have a scoring system. If you haven't watched the first half of this, we have 4 categories. We have production and writing, which we did in the last episode. And then this episode, we're going to do characterization and theme. And there are like subcategories that we're going to discuss that will amount to the star. So, characterization. Helps if I do that part. I thought the acting was amazing. Randy Quaid, and
he played creepy way too well.
Way too well.
Like, I'm almost concerned. And that's a good thing. Like, that's a good thing. Like, if you're playing a creep and you're doing that to the point where I'm looking back like at you like, ooh, you're really good at that in a way that you shouldn't be. It's a sign of a good actor. I hope. It's a sign of a good actor.
Absolutely. Demi Moore, just super amazing.
And what was Margaret's last name? The woman that played Sue. Start with a Q.
I can't remember.
Anyway, so there's Margaret and Demi, and they're essentially playing each other. Demi Moore is a little bit older, probably in her late 50s, I would say.
In the
Early
in the
60s.
movie, but she's like 60 now. Yeah.
So roughly about what her actual age is. She's playing in that Twilight, the beginning of that Twilight era, and post midlife crisis, but at that age where you start to get really aged out of Hollywood, where you're like playing the still attractive grandma in a movie, she's like at that age. The character is the character she's playing is an actress, and Sue, I can't remember Demi's character's name. Elizabeth.
Lizzie Starr. Yeah.
Yeah. So Elizabeth is Demi Moore's character, and then she goes through the whole thing to get a younger version of herself to kind of keep the ball rolling. And that's Sue. And for those two actresses to play each other, but different variations of each other, I think they did a really, really good job on that one. I'd love to see like a genuine behind the scenes or maybe an interview with Demi Moore and Margaret, just to see how they got to know each other or how they both related to essentially the different versions of the same character. I'd be curious to watch that.
Super, as far as consistency and evolution, I think that's kind of the theme.
I think evolution would definitely be a characteristic of the theme of the movie.
It was surreal. Was what would be the word that I would use for the evolution in that movie of all the characters.
Of the characters, yes. I have my gripe with the ending.
About the ending, yeah.
I have my gripe with the ending, and I don't feel like that's consistent. But this is characterization, and so if we're looking at the characters, I think the characters played natural progressions of themselves. Randy Quaid's character is kind of the creep producer without being. He's like his character is like on the verge of being Weinstein-y, but not quite. More like unnecessarily understanding and has a favoritism towards the pretty. If you're sexy, he likes it because whatever reason he may have. True story. Because Margaret is really hot. But that was kind of the role that she was playing. She was playing like the super hot version of Elizabeth, and she replaced Elizabeth's old and washed up character and replaced it with something young, new, and sexy, which is a reflection of what's really happening in Hollywood. And of course, I always talk about wrestling because everything comes back to wrestling. It happens in the ring. I mentioned, characters like Lady Frost. She's a older woman, but by older in wrestling, she's like in her late 30s, and that's considered older. And unless you're a legend like Trish Stratus or Mickie James, you're not going to be in the ring anywhere past 45 as a woman. Yeah, but then you'll got guys like Sting who will wrestle until 50 or 60, or guys like Dusty Rhodes. And there's no criticism on the older guys that are wrestling, but there's a lot of criticism on older women. And I think this movie takes that Hollywood reflection of things and is really highlighting it with the contrast between Elizabeth and Sue. And the way those actresses play their characters, they highlight those concerns and those worries, particularly with the date scene for Elizabeth as she's getting ready for the date. She's dealing with seeing these images of Sue and realizing that this pretty young thing's replaced her. But then she remembers she ran into a guy who loved her, who cared about her for her. It was attracted to her as she was. And even the fact that he made that abundantly clear that she was, as she was, perfect to him. She still wasted so much time trying to perfect her look because God forbid someone love her just as she was. And I think that's really telling how many people can relate to that, both men and women out here who can relate to that. And I think that that's something that really does speak to the consistency of the portrayal of the characters. And just the second part is point of view. We can relate as the audience. I think it's very easy for anyone, young or old, male or female or otherwise, to relate to the portrayals in this movie. And that all goes to the acting.
Yes. Well put.
Thank you.
POV. Lizzie Sparkle, who was the fitness star who was aging, played
The
by
Suzanne
Demi Moore.
Summers-esque character, for those out there who remember Suzanne Summers. That's how old I am.
And Sue, who was played by Margaret, and it was really interesting to see the evolution of the thought process between Lizzie Sparkle and Sue.
Yes.
Right.
I was looking at the last name.
So
it's like Quayle. Or
Quayle. Yeah.
Quayle. Qualley.
Quayle, yeah. And then Eliza Sue. Right? The thing at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's from her point of view. I think it's worth hearing your words about the ending before we get into the theme.
Okay. And I'll be more brief on this one. There is a real representative tone through most of this movie. As we spoke on the characterization of the characters of Elizabeth and Sue, particularly, and how they're portrayed. The movie takes a very, I won't say serious tone, but it lacks the necessary, it lacks sarcasm, but it is a sort of a straightforward tone. It is the reflection of Elizabeth trying to cling on to youth through Sue, and then Sue's desire to hold on to the fame and credence that she gets for being young and pretty, to the point where when she goes beyond the rules of the substance, she uses what was left over, which should have been thrown away, because horror begins at the mistakes, right? Horror begins when someone makes a mistake. That's kind of what I've always said. And the mistake was not to pour out the substance which she was supposed to. Elizabeth was supposed to use some at the beginning and then discard the rest. She didn't. And this is the reason why. So the copy used the substance. You made it basically a copy of a copy, and you know that's supposed to be really, really bad. If you've seen Multiplicity with Michael Keaton way back in the day, then you understand that you can't make a clone out of a clone out of a clone out of a clone. It's terrible quality. That's what Eliza Sue is. And after you get to the Eliza Sue part, like Eliza Sue, if she had seen herself as the monster she was and played it straight, like Elizabeth played straight and Sue played straight, then I wouldn't feel so bad about this. But when we get to the monster of Eliza Sue, it's played as this Alyssa Sue just doesn't realize that she's a grotesque monster. She still thinks she's like Elizabeth, and she doesn't even. She puts on the dress like normal, and then she goes to the little New Year's thing, and thank you for the thumbs up. Yeah, that was just Sako's way of reminding you didn't before to hit like on the thing. Then it gets super campy. You go like one by one in the crowd, and they're like, "Is it on me now?" And I'm like, "Why do no?" It gets super campy from there. Like the Dennis Quaid character is, or the Quaid character. I can't remember Dennis Randy. Quaid character is Harvey. So what's his name?
It should be. If it's
I think
not.
the producer's name was Harvey. Harvey is kind of campy, which is fine if you're setting the mood for the ending. But I don't feel like it was really set, and it gets really campy from there. You kind of it takes you out. It took me out of the mood for the movie, and I was just kind of like, all right, this is now just we created a gross scene just to have a gross scene in this body horror movie, which is fine. It's fine. But it was it took me out. So like I said, like I can't fuck with it. But
I think they are separate movies. The
and they shouldn't be. You're right. You're right. And that's what annoys me.
Because I like the scene as it is. Like if I isolate it, then it's hilarious and it works. But before then is not.
Yeah, if it was a short and that was the short, right? If the ending was the short, I could fuck with it, right? Because that's the tone is consistent from pillar to post, right? And what my big issue is that it feels like this, and then just drops and just goes in a whole other direction after that.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's like little bitty nuancy things like the portrayal of, and I guess this kind of counts for the character. The only part I didn't like was really, really old Sue, who is slowly and barely able to move and kind of old and decrepit. She's kind of like the equivalent of like 110 years old. And you're going to convince me that she's able to scurry down the street, crawl underneath a door that only comes up halfway, grab a box, drag it back home, and then drag a 20-something, 110-pound body across a big old condo or penthouse and drag that body all around and then run and jump and fight like that at the end. Again, that's the one part that wasn't consistent in the character portrayal. And I want to love the ending, and I can't. I like it. I can't love it.
I think that's fair.
It is because of the consistency. You set a tone, and then you blow it out for the sake of an action-packed ending or whatever. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you there. How do we feel about giving it a star? That being said.
I'm willing to give it a star because although that took me out, that character portrayal took me out. To not give it credit for what was done prior feels almost criminal. I don't think it was so bad that.
I think we'll talk more about tone and mood and stuff like that in the theme.
Yeah,
but
and I feel like that part is connected but different enough that I won't have this particular thing too much of an influence on the other. It's kind of kind of in a weird spot where I feel as if I want to give it credit for how Margaret and Demi portrayed their characters up to the ending, up to the third act, because that is really, really good, and I do think it's very relatable for anyone who's watching it. However, I also feel as if you're going to do that and then switch, that switch should make sense, and it didn't, and I feel like it almost spoiled it. I'm a err on the side of kindness, and I will give it a star.
I enjoyed the ending, but I did feel like the third act was a separate movie. So I'm gonna say a star, but there's a caveat.
Yeah,
right?
It's like a star with an asterisk. Like,
yeah.
Like I would, if it was under certain circumstances, I'm like, nah, this is a warning. This is a warning. Don't do it again.
Yeah, I feel you. Okay, so star for characterization.
Yeah.
On to theme. The message. You are the one, you are the Matrix.
Yeah.
Right. That was kind of the warning in the beginning and the consequences at the end.
Yeah.
So that kind of storytelling, I think, was well played, but yeah, I'll just end that with a period.
I get that. I do. I get that. So I touched on it already. I think that when you look at the overall message of the film, like you said, you are the Matrix, and what that phrase meant in movie. For those of you that have watched it, you should. But for those who haven't, it's basically you are the source of sustenance that is creating the doppelganger, right? The duplicate. And you're the one in control. And what ends up happening is the one in control, the original, loses control because the younger version kind of breaks the rules and they end up paying for it. It's a reminder that, in my view, it's a reminder that you're the one in control of your life. Like, whatever impressions people may have of you, whatever opinions they have, just because they think you're washed up doesn't mean you're washed up. Because they don't see value in you doesn't mean you don't have value. That just means you may not be valuable to them, which just tells you that you need to not be associated with them, and let that be a message to all of us that, you know, regardless of if somebody read our work, you know, we're independent authors and such. So whether someone read Sako's book or watched one of my films and thought they sucked, is that a reflection of who we are as artists? No. That just means whatever we did wasn't for them. And that's cool. I'm sure someone out there read Sako's book and didn't like it. Read my book, didn't like it. Saw my short films, didn't like it. Saw Sako's art, didn't like it. You know, I'm sure those people exist. It's cool. It's fine. But just like in this movie, where Elizabeth found her value, her self-worth in the opinions of the producers and the fan base, and whether or not she was, you know, still a star of that show, that shouldn't have been the source of her value. And when she felt that value was gone, she went through extreme measures to try to get it back, and it backfired. Same thing with Sue. Sue started to lose her pretty and went through extreme measures to try to maintain it. So whether you're young or old, the feeling impacts you all the same, and you end up being the monster in the end, just like Elizabeth.
So, the tone and the mood. We've already discussed that it shifts drastically between the first two acts and the final act.
Yeah.
But it wants you to experience everything firsthand, right?
Yeah.
With the camera stuff where it zooms in real close and it's big on the detail, and both for positive things like Sue's body, or like Randy Quaid eating, which was super disgusting.
That was gross,
and that was a reflection of who he was as a person.
Yeah, the lack of care and consideration. I think that reflects the lack of consideration that he had for others. It was really all about him. But to echo what you were saying, not just in the positive, as it zooms in on things like Sue and Sue's body, and especially when they're in the small clothes during the workout show or whatever. Also, we mentioned this in the cinematography first section, where they did things with the camera that when Elizabeth felt bad or felt lack of value or felt small, she was made literally small on screen, and that was just done with perspective. And I thought all of that was a great way. Like you said, they want you to feel it firsthand, and that's an amazing way to do that. Just like in the Descent, they stayed close to you in those claustrophobic moments to make you at home. You could be in a big, wide room. You could be watching it outside in the field, and you're still going to feel claustrophobic because of how great the camera work was. And that all of that was important for storytelling. And I think they did a great job on that.
Yeah. Lots of action in scenes that were not technically active, right? So, like Sue, it was all cinematography, right? She was basically just like posing, and the camera was making love to her, for lack of better phrasing.
Yeah, if that same scene on a different channel would be perceived completely different.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in isolation, I'm not sure if YouTube would be able to play some of that stuff. Just in isolation. Just because like you wouldn't want your mom to walk in and watch certain of those scenes of Sue.
Right.
Or your wife or children, for that matter. You kind of want to be by yourself. It's like, because even just because I think my wife actually did walk in on those scenes when I was watching it, and she's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "It's The Substance. It's a horror movie. I promise." Kind of explain it away, but no, like it all makes sense in the way they portray the story, and I think that as far as telling the story and setting the mood, I think they did right with my already extensively explained thoughts on the third act.
Yeah. I think as far as backstory, we have pretty much explained the whole movie.
Yeah, between this episode and the last, I think we've given a rundown. And the last episode I did a good rundown of the whole movie, generally speaking. And I think as far as the backstory, as a matter of fact, I will make this notation. To tell the history and story of Elizabeth Sparkle, they do a wonderful montage to open this movie. And I know I mentioned it before, but I did mention it before in this episode, so we get to say it again. That montage is masterful. it's an amazing way of not just conveying the passage of time, but it's just a shot of her Hollywood star, right? Her Chinese theater star. And from the putting it together and how they actually put it, which I thought was fascinating. I'm like, is that how they really put the stars together? That looked pretty dope. I'd never seen them do that. So that was cool. And then just staying locked in on that star, keeping the frame right there, and then allowing the montage of time to pass and showing how that star wasn't maintained, just to kind of show how her fandom kind of faded away, like her star was kind of fading. And that's just like, to tell a backstory in such a simplistic but cinematically masterful way, just, it was dope.
Absolutely. So, are we giving it a star for? I mean, like the message, and I mean, we definitely talked about the tone, the shift in tone. I would say the tone works for the third act if it was isolated.
Yeah.
So
I would agree. Movie overall, the movie overall was,
the first half was great.
it was, the first 2/3 was great. And it only really starts to shift in tone when we have, starting with the fight between Elizabeth and Sue, which of course is a big deal because typically they're not both conscious at the same time. So when they're both conscious at the same time,
the reaction of the two,
it's so strange.
So, but the reaction that they have at seeing each other, just like that, the acting was amazing.
It was. And they told this story very well. And so if you haven't seen it, to kind of explain, in that scene, Elizabeth is reminded she's the one in charge. She's the one in control. She makes the decision. So she's made the decision to terminate Sue, to basically kill Sue, right? And to kill Sue, she has to use a certain like formula or whatever. And halfway through using it, she realizes she can't do it because what Sue represents for her youth, her success, even though she's being literally abused and eaten up and used until she's literally just a withering body, she still feels a connection and a link to what this represents. And she backs out halfway through, and she ends up breaking the process, and all of it goes wrong, leading into the fight and Sue breaking down and all this kind of stuff happening. It's crazy. And that's when the tone shifts for me. I don't know if I'm comfortable punishing the whole movie for the end, but at the same time, it's like I was saying in the last section, it's like the end, the first two thirds are supposed to be leading and building for the finale.
The third act.
Where I feel like they kind of dropped the ball.
They jumped the shark. It was not... I kind of vote that we give it a star with the consideration that they are like two separate movies.
Kind of. Yeah, you know what? It'd be great for those who are watching this either live or on catch up. Tell us how you think we should handle this kind of debate. If we think that
Mm-hmm.
if the ending doesn't match up to the hype of the rest of the movie, should we punish the whole
Mm-hmm.
movie? Does it deserve a star for that? Let us know what you think in the comments, and this might help us out in case we encounter this same scenario on a different movie. But because I gave it a star despite the ending in the third section, I'm willing to give it a star in the fourth. Just being consistent.
I'm willing to give it a star.
But
in
I'm
the
telling
fourth
you,
as well,
this will punish the next movie where the ending doesn't match up. Because this is going to make me really reflect on whether or not a movie does all this work to build and then doesn't quite deliver. Does this count if it's not worth it? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so this might set a bad precedent, but I think today we will be kind and we'll give it a star. But the ending, because the ending wasn't bad, just doesn't match. I think that's the difference.
Match.
That's the difference. For a body horror movie, the ending isn't bad, but it doesn't match. Tone doesn't match. Character portrayal doesn't match. And that's where it goes wrong.
The reaction of the crowd during the New Year's Eve event, was just so campy.
It was because it was and you can tell that it wasn't done by accident. This was intentional. The over-exaggeration of facial expressions, the delay before reacting. The camera cuts to them. It's like they wait for the... Imagine if you're the camera operator and you zoom to pick a person. It's like, hey, you, go. And it's recording the entire time. So you watch the camera hit the mark. The person's like...
Oh, it's me.
And then and it's like, I get it. They wanted camp for that. Kind of 1960s Batman, kind of campy. But this, if you're going to
1980s horror sort of thing.
Yeah, like old school Elm Street kind of, like Freddy 3 kind of shit. You know what I mean? Kind of where now we've got this character and he's more funny than serious. We're kind of going like new Chucky.
Oh, really?
Think about how new Chucky is, not the TV series, but like the newer movies, like Seed of Chucky, Bride of Chucky, where Chucky wasn't a scary guy anymore. He didn't look like a threat. He was just like a funny psychotic doll.
Okay.
And I feel like that tone shift that Chucky took is the same kind of tone shift this movie took, but all in one movie. Does that make sense? Because don't get me wrong, the way the franchise shifted in the mid to late 90s to be kind of more palatable to the horror taste of the time is fine for Chucky, but it wasn't in one movie. It didn't happen in one movie. It happened over the course of a franchise, and this happened all in one movie. It was too
abrupt.
Yeah, like I said, it takes you out of it. If you showed an audience act that way earlier, like let's say when Sue starts her show, she's a live studio audience, and the camera points to one person and goes, "Wow, yay!" And you did that and established it in at least one scene earlier, I wouldn't even care because you've already established it. That's how audiences act.
Yeah.
More or less. That's how audience act in this type of universe. Then it'd been fine. It all matched. I'd be mad you didn't do it. But they didn't do that. They did not establish this is how people reacted to things. So again, whatever you're going to do out there, filmmakers, just be consistent. Make sure
writers too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just a lot of that has, in my opinion, is probably direction. from the director, and probably less in the writing. But if you're writing standalone novels or a series or novellas or doing any of that kind of stuff, you start writing prose in that manner. You've got to make sure that the tone that you're starting things off with is consistent. I'll tell you right now, write whatever tone you want. This is a conversation we were having with people on Discord. Write the story you want to write, right? People will be there for your story, regardless of what it is. People are going to hate on it, and that's okay. But people will be there for it. Just be consistent. Because when you lack that consistency from the start to finish of one particular novel or through the course of a trilogy or a series or whatever, they will notice, and that will take people out of the element, and that will work against your book sales and your credibility as an artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what? I almost sound like I know what I'm talking about.
You know, you're doing a lot of that today. It's just spitting wisdom.
I'm just dropping bombs.
Overall, we gave it 4 stars.
Mm-hmm.
Are we happy with 4 stars, or do we give it 3 because of the ending?
Okay, let's reflect and let's talk about this. Would you be willing to go back and give it a half star for sections 3 and 4, which would be like solid star, half and half? Because I feel like the ending is almost such a tone change.
It hamstrings the movie.
It kind of does. So I feel like I feel like 4 stars doesn't feel right. Taking a star off doesn't feel right, but giving it full stars doesn't feel right either. I think sections 3 need to be half stars each for a grand total of 3 stars. Because that ending, in my opinion, was egregious enough to warrant this much conversation about it. So for me to say this much about it and then give it 4 stars doesn't feel right. What say Sako?
I think that's fair. I think half stars because we repeatedly talked about how they are different parts.
Yeah.
Different tones, different messages. And I mean, it's obvious. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. But
tone shift? Are you referring to like the tone shift?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's intentional. It was clearly intentional. These are things that the director wanted things to happen this way. And it did. And that's what we have to hold it to. So yeah, I think retrospectively, I think we're at a 3-star movie.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That feels right. 3-star movie for the substance. That was our review. Like, pretty comprehensive review of the substance. Frankly,
I can only imagine. I mean, it took. We're at 44 minutes of this episode. It was just over an hour for the last one. I'm impressed that we had that much to say, but at the same time, a lot of it felt there was a lot worth talking about. Seriously, like, don't let us or anybody else on YouTube or anywhere else tell you, oh, just because we put it at 3 stars, it's not worth watching, or I'm not going to watch it. Watch all the movies that we talk about. Watch them all, have your own opinion. In fact, if you have a different opinion, leave that in the comments so we can kind of get an idea of maybe we're off base. Maybe. maybe we're being too harsh, not harsh enough. Let us know how you would have scored this movie, given the different criteria that we look at. And trust me, this is definitely the week to get our scoring system down, because you're going to get a lot of us this week.
Tomorrow we are going to be reviewing Hush because we did the domestic horror episode of Sako and the Moon. And on Thursday, we are reviewing. Ren will come back for Hush, and she will also come back for Woman in Black.
Yes. The
both are going to be at
movie, Daniel Radcliffe's.
Yes. Both are at 11 o'clock Eastern in the morning. Please watch it in post. We are aware that our timing is weird, but life happens, and also you guys watch it in post. So thank you for watching. Thank you for making it to the end. If you haven't liked or subscribed or rang the bell or rated us or there's just interact with our episode
and share us with other people. Let other people, if you enjoy us, share us with other people. Hit that notification bell. This is the week for that. This is the week to hit that notification bell, because we got so much happening this week. I think Wednesday is the only day we're not recording.
Yep.
So we got Monday, we've got Tuesday, we've got Thursday, we've got Friday, we got next Monday where we're going to be talking about Candyman and comparing two movies. We're going to get to that later. But there's so much happening this particular week. You're going to want to hit that notification bell. Set it to all. You're going to want to know when all this stuff is happening. And if you can't watch us right then and there, save us, watch later, and then come back to it.
Yeah. Friday we are talking with Ren one last time about cryptids in Appalachia.
Which, being from Virginia and Kentucky, is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal at this point.
So we might do further episodes about the Northwest or the Northeast or the Midwest. But
a lot happens in the Midwest. There's stories. There's some stories.
We are gonna tear apart cryptids in Appalachia, and Ren is gonna join us one last time. And then like Moon said, we are going to review Candyman, who is a cryptid in and of himself, and compare the old movie to the new movie, and vice versa. So we will discuss the differences.
And review. That one might be 2 episodes. Who knows how that's going to play out?
That one might be 2 episodes.
We have to figure that one out. So again, you're going to want to hit that notification bell so that you know when we start talking about the things.
At least subscribe, so we show up in your subscription.
Do all the things. Do all the things. Do all of them. Because you love us.
Because you love us.
And share us with your friends. Because your friends will love us too. I don't know why we're whispering all of a sudden. I did that. That's my fault.
Thank you for joining us. We still don't have a sign off. But
tune in next time if you dare.
Tune in if you dare. Yeah.
I'm sure somebody uses that one.
I'm sure they do.
Until they find me and tell me to stop. Email us at sakomoon@gmail.com. If that's your sign off.
At gmail.com. Email us if you want to work with us, or you enjoy what we do, or you want to send us hate mail.
It's cool.
We enjoy all the mail.
I'll write back the hate mail.
Thank you again for joining us, and we will catch you later.
If you did.